Hello, welcome. This is Jonathan Lombard, and you're watching or listening to Leader Connect. This is where you'll find pertinent insider information to our Connect group system, as well as leadership tips that may help you as you're leading your Connect groups throughout the year. Today, there's three things I want to hit, and we're gonna do this relatively quick. My goal when we do these Leader Connects is that we accomplish it in 10 to 15 minutes. So I can get you the information. You can get what you need, but you don't have to listen for an hour of me talking to you. So I want to respect your time. The first thing we want to talk about today is things to do before your first meeting, and that'll be the week of September 14th. September 14th is a Sunday, and that week, between that Sunday and that Saturday, that would be our starting week. And so groups will be starting all throughout that week. Some of them traditionally will start on that Wednesday, but there'll be groups that start all different times that week. And so we're going to talk about some things to do before your first meeting, as well as what are some things that you need to do during your first meeting. And so those are some good questions that we want to answer. As well as last thing before we go today is I want to give you a leadership tip. So number one, things to do before your first meeting. I think number one, you want to pray, and I know that sounds maybe a little bit trite, maybe a little kind of a Sunday school answer, but honestly, if you've signed up to be a Connect group leader or a host, this is a spiritual responsibility, and there's going to be a lot of things that just you can't answer in just training, and you can't go and figure it out. You just have to go before the Lord in prayer. There's a lot, you could plan the best that you can plan, and you could prepare and all that type of stuff, and at the end of the day, without prayer, without soaking this in the presence of the Lord and letting God have that place, what are we really doing, right? And so I just encourage you, even if you don't know every single person that's going to be in your group, start praying for them right now. Pray that God would work on their hearts, that He would bring the right people at the right time to your group, because this is going to be a powerful time where you'll get to walk with people in areas of discipleship, in hard times and in good times, and it'll be a good thing. So prayer is the first thing. The second thing is, I would say before your first meeting, personal contact. Now, people are going to know about Connect groups. We've been promoting it. We've been casting vision. At some point along the line, I would say most people have heard about it. But I'll give you a little bit of kind of an insider leadership thing here. Is that you can never make an announcement from the pulpit, read something out of the bulletin to everybody, and expect that anybody's really going to sign up. Really what announcements do and our promo material, something in the mail, is it puts it on their radar. And you may get a few people that decide, hey, I'm going to go do a Connect group. I want to sign up. But most people, for some reason, they just want a personal invitation. And the moment they get a phone call, the moment they get a text message, the moment they get a face-to-face during a greeting time or before or after a church service, that's kind of the seal the deal moment for them. For some reason, people like personal contact. So I encourage you. I gave each of our leaders some potential names that could possibly be interested in your group. There may be others that you know of that are on your heart, and I encourage you, in some way, shape, or form, do some personal contact before your first meeting. Number two is what about during your first meeting? What are some things to cover? Well, first of all, you guys will all be getting a sheet that looks like this. This is your getting to know me sample questions, and we'll go over those here in just a minute. But in the first couple meetings, this will be a time where everyone's kind of getting to know each other, and that's why they're called getting to know me questions. And I'm gonna ask you guys to either use some of these or use some of your own, but go around the room and ask questions. People don't have to answer if they don't want to, but these questions are designed that they're not going to embarrass people. They're not going to make people get real uncomfortable, but they are going to require that somebody answers a question, and that helps us get to know each other as your group moves on. As the groups get to know each other better over the course of weeks, you'll find that people will start to open up more, and it takes some people longer than others. But here's some sample questions, like you may want to ask the question, what vacation or big trip, either as an adult or child, did you enjoy the most? Here's a question. When you are lost, which are you most likely to do? Stop and ask for directions, check a map, drive around until you find it, not admit to anyone that you're lost. I think I probably fall in either the checking a map or not admitting that I'm lost. One of those two. And there's some questions like that. Questions that are even more spiritual, like tell about your salvation experience. Was it a one specific moment, or was it a journey? And at some point along the line, you realized that you were a Christian and you loved Jesus. What was the most spiritual, significant moment in your life, and why? And I have about 10 questions on the sheet, and you may have others, but I'd like you to have a time, probably during the first 20 or 30 minutes of your group, where you guys are just getting to know each other, asking questions, and kind of just letting that go where it needs to go. Two is, your hosts should be communicated with, and you might want to check in with your hosts, especially if you haven't met them yet. I would definitely connect with your host. There needs to be some refreshments. That you don't have to break the bank or anything, but have some refreshments, have some drinks, coffee, water, those types of things. And just some snack foods, and that'll be just kind of it kind of helps some of the awkward, when people are, they're able to grab a snack and eat, they're able to have something in their hands and drink. It just it helps with that whole social environment. It helps break some of that awkward tension, awkward silence, especially in the first week or two when people are getting to know each other. And so those are some things. Also, another thing is if you have the ability to have a little bit of background music going on, especially as people are coming in, you can shut it off at some point, but soft music in the background, it kind of just cuts out some of that awkward silence. And I've just found that just in my own experience. You can choose to do that or not, but I usually like to have music playing as people are coming in to my home for a meeting. The other thing here during your first meeting, and you'll receive a copy of this. This is the group covenant, and it's front and back. And I'm going to want you to go over this with your groups. This will be where you guys come into agreement on the start date and end date of your group, where you talk about who's the leader and who's the host, and you put phone numbers down. You go over kind of what people can expect each week. And you talk about a little bit of that, and then you're really kind of covenanting together that you're going to take this journey for 10 weeks, and you're asking people to commit for 10 weeks. Now here's the disclaimer. They need to have this signed on or before the third week, and that it says that right here on actually, let's see how I wrote it. It says any member, regardless of a signature, may choose to discontinue attending the Connect group anytime before or immediately after the third week, no questions asked. All you need to do is not show up. And so that's something I want you to go over that with everybody, that you're not expecting anything crazy out of anybody. In fact, they could just kind of get to know the group for 2 or 3 weeks and then decide, hey, this isn't for me. And all they have to do is not show up. I want you to clearly communicate that. But those that are comfortable with it, they can sign the covenant right then and there that first day, but they at least need to sign it by the third week. And so group covenant, that's a big deal. And if you have questions on that, then you can definitely get a hold of me, and we'll talk over some of those things. And then at the end of your meeting, this first meeting, I'd like you to just have a time of prayer together, whether you take prayer requests or whether you guys all just kind of popcorn prayer or whatever. I want there to be some element of prayer or pulling on heaven and the presence of the Lord, something along those lines. And you notice that during the first meeting, we're not given space for a sermon-based small group. And that's just because, for two reasons. One is we want the first meeting to be real relational and for it to be really focused on everybody getting to know each other. And then two, we're not going to have a sermon leading up to that first group. Actually, we're going to be coming right out of a conference with Rick Lombard and Derek Steen. And so that first group, it's going to be mostly centered around getting to know each other, questions, that covenant, some prayer. You may even have some questions regarding the conference we just had, but that's going to be about it. And lastly, number 3, leadership tip for the week is two things. First, learning to listen. This is a big deal. If you're a leader that's real talkative, like myself, this has been a huge learning curve for me, is learning to listen. And I'll tell you what, it's really actually kind of rude to talk and not listen. And it shows honor, it shows respect to do more listening than talking. And so just something that I like to do, I like to ask questions and then hold back and listen. If I'm not getting a response, I usually in my head, I'll count to like 5 or 10, just in my head, you know. Something like that. That was about 5 seconds. I just counted it out in my head. A little bit of an awkward pause, but it allows somebody to speak up. And there's people that you know, they're not as talkative and they're processing information. And so if I pause, it gives them an opportunity to speak. And they may not just get their words out as fast as I like them. So do some of those intentional pauses, even if it's just a little bit awkward. Another thing that you can do is you can work something out with your host or another person in the group that if people aren't responding right away to questions, that they be one of the first 1 or 2 people to ask to answer a question. That way there's not as much of that awkward pause. But learning to listen, that's a huge deal, and it just takes practice. Don't be afraid of awkward silence for a few seconds. Even I've gone as long as 20, 30 seconds or even a minute just waiting on people. You kind of have to play that by ear and decide when's the best time to use that. But at least 5, 10, 15 seconds to just kind of make sure that someone else gets a chance to speak. And then the last leadership tip that kind of goes along with this is asking good questions. You want to ask questions in such a way that gets more than a one-word answer. So they're called open-ended questions. Like some of these, what vacation or big trip, either as an adult or child, did you enjoy the most? And and that they can make that as short or as long as they want. They can't just say yes or no. So they have to really kind of say it. I really loved our trip to Disneyland when I was 4 or whatever. And you may choose to kind of poke and prod a little bit and say, so why did you enjoy it? What was the best thing about it? But at least asking a question that can't be answered in just a yes or a no. Like, what was your most significant spiritual experience, and why? And being able to have them kind of dig a little bit deeper than a yes or no. And so learning to listen, but also learning to ask really good questions. And when you ask those questions, just leave it out there, hold back, wait for a few seconds before you ask another question. There's going to be a tendency, if nobody's answering, for you to want to just kind of jump in and ask another one. And I just encourage you, learn to listen, learn to wait, and you'll know if it gets too awkward and you need to clarify or ask another question. But learn to listen and ask good questions. All right. Hey, this has been Leader Connect, and you can look forward to having more of these as the year progresses. Blessings.